Today's episode is sponsored by Select Savory Seasonings. Have you ever noticed that most barbecue rubs on the market use sugar as the first or second ingredient? Worry no longer. With Select Savory Seasonings, they offer fresh, gourmet, small batch, sugar-free and additive-free seasonings and spices to help you make good, tasty food that is good for you so that you can lose weight, get healthy, and feel amazing. Check them out today at selectsavory.com and use coupon code PODCAST to receive 15% off your first order. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Simple Low Carb Lifestyle Podcast. I'm your host, Corey, the Creative Keto Cook. And today we have Dr. Josh Axe with us. He is the founder of the world's #1 most visited natural health website, draxe.com. He's also the best-selling author of The Collagen Diet, the Keto Diet Cookbook, Eat Dirt, which my kids do that without even reading the book, and the Keto Diet. He's also the co-founder of Ancient Nutrition Supplement Company, and he has been on lots of shows such as the Dr. Oz Show, and he has written for many places such as Shape, Pop Sugar, HuffPost, Men's Health, and others. And today we're going to be discussing his new book, Ancient Remedies. And in this book, he explains how to treat more than 70 diseases, lose weight, and increase vitality with traditional healing practices that have been passed down through the ages and the centuries. So thank you for joining us today.
Hey, thanks for having me, Corey. Excited to be here.
So let's just start off like I always do is let's give us some background of what got you into health and nutrition. I know that wasn't your initial background, and then what led into writing Ancient Remedies.
Yeah, so really what got me into this field was a health crisis in my family. And I see this with a lot of people that really practice natural medicine. You know, they learned about it through maybe they themselves had a health crisis or someone they care about. And it was the same with me. So when I was young, I was probably in junior high, my mom was diagnosed with cancer, breast cancer, which was crazy for us because when you looked at my mom, you would have thought, oh, she is a role model of fitness. She was a swim instructor. In fact, she was my gym teacher in elementary school. She just looked fit and healthy. But she got that cancer diagnosis. So at 41, my mom went through all the traditional medical treatments. She had a mastectomy. She went through rounds and rounds and rounds of chemotherapy. And I can still remember this day, seeing her hair fall out and thinking to myself, she had aged so much in just a matter of a few weeks. And, we were excited by the end of it, though, because she got a cancer-free diagnosis. And her doctor said, hey, you're cancer-free, you're healthy, and you're good to go. You just need to do these regular checkups now. The crazy thing for us, though, was after going through all these treatments, she seemed like she had more health problems than ever before. She got put on multiple medications, including antidepressant and anti-anxiety drugs. She got diagnosed with hypothyroidism, chronic fatigue syndrome, had major digestive issues, gained a lot of weight, and just felt sick and tired all the time. Just immune system was down, always catching stuff. And this went on for years. And probably about 14 years or so later, I'm actually about a year away from graduating college to actually chiropractic school. I'm also learning everything I've learned about nutrition and natural medicine. And I get a call from my mom in tears, and she says, I've been diagnosed with cancer again. What do I do? And I said, Mom, I'll be home. I flew from Florida, where I was in school, back to Ohio. And we just felt really led to take care of her all naturally. And so with my mom, we started changing her diet. And even though actually at the same time, I want to mention the oncologist said, hey, we prefer you go in and do surgery and radiation in 3 days. But they said, if you want to follow this plan, we just need to see you again here in about 3 to 4 months, and we'll redo the scan and see where you're at. So we decided, hey, we're going to go all in and take care of her the best we can for 4 months. She started doing, she went kind of borderline keto. It wasn't full on keto. It was really more, here's what she ate. So it was pretty much, 60% vegetables, some wild organic meat and healthy fat, and then some berries. And that was her diet, that was her diet, and then she did do some vegetables, like mostly green, like celery juice, that sort of thing. And we had her start doing herbs like turmeric. In fact, at the time I was doing hours and hours of research. In fact, it ended up being thousands of hours of researching best diets for cancer. Ancient Remedies for cancer and all these things. So I came across turmeric and all the research. I came across reishi mushroom. I came across herbs like astragalus. And so in mushrooms like reishi and cordyceps. So we started doing all these things. And my mom followed this healing program for about 4 months. After 4 months, she went back to her oncologist in Columbus, Ohio. They redid a CT scan, and they called us a day later, and their exact words were, this is highly unusual. We don't typically see this, but the tumors have shrunk by more than half.
Yep.
They said, keep doing what you're doing. Went back about 9 months later, almost complete remission. And today my mom it's been about 14 probably years since then. And my mom is in her late 60s. And she's in the best shape of her life. She water skis. She's ran 5Ks and says she feels better now in her late 60s than she did in her 30s. Yeah. And so all that being said, I really took what I learned with my mom and started applying that and working with patients and just started seeing incredible results. Things like type 2 diabetes being reversed, autoimmune disease being reversed, people healing from conditions where they've been done doctors to see. So, I really believe in the power of natural medicine and lifestyle medicine. If we can make these changes, people can heal pretty quickly. But the truth is, a lot of people don't know that there's another way.
Excuse me. Unfortunately, that is the case. I know you mentioned in your book that your background was hey, medicine is medicine. They know everything. Almost that type of an attitude. Doctor says to do it, let's do it. And then, of course, as your mom went through that second diagnosis, you start going, wait a minute, there's got to be a better way. And even myself, my dad has worked in cardiology his whole life, so it's always been a trust what the doctor says, don't question it almost type of an attitude. And through nutrition and understanding, all we've been taught about nutrition's not been correct. Even my dad now we're both going, wait a minute, is that really the best way to take care of things? Even with a recent diagnosis for him of possible prostate cancer, we were already looking at, okay, what are other ways to take care of this other than, what is going to be recommended to be taken care of it. And it's interesting how when we do the research, we find out, as you discuss in your book, a lot of these ancient remedies have been shown to be effective. We just seem to forget that for some reason.
Yeah, well, it's interesting. Up until about 150 years ago, when you used the word medicine, so often it actually referred to, almost throughout history, it's only referred to herbs and spices like turmeric and ginger and everything. That was medicine. In fact, if you go into an ancient apothecary, you would typically find three things. You would find herbs and spices, you would find mushrooms, and you'd find glandulars and organ meats. And that's what you'd find, even if you go into Asia today or Okinawa, Japan, if you go into some of these places, they call them, again, apothecaries. Those are, these ancient, pharmacies where people, got these things.
And it still works today. We just have to sometimes got to look backwards and before you look forwards, unfortunately. I like one of the things you said in the book, and this is so true, unfortunately. The pharmaceutical era gave rise to focusing on the treating of individual superficial symptoms. So we look at what we see on the surface instead of addressing the true underlying root cause of disease. And we've forgotten that each human is a complex, synergistic blend of body, mind, and spirit. And it's something we see over and over again. Here's a drug because your nose is running, but we don't ask, why is your nose running? And find out the root cause of those issues.
Yeah, I mean, it's amazing today how, And the thing that is so sad for so many people, and this is true with a lot of things in life, but hey, if the government says it or this one group says it, you just need to go with it. When the truth of the matter is, when you look at how blind these people are, the way that we treat big, threatening issues today, it's like, hey, let's just give them this one medication when we know, hey, immunodeficiencies are at the root cause of a lot of these problems. And so I said from the start, here's what's crazy. I said from the start, listen, everybody needs to go and take zinc, vitamin D, vitamin C, and then potentially look at herbs like echinacea, elderberry, astragalus, and then, hey, eat really a nourishing diet. That's what people need to be doing, getting outside, getting sunlight. And then at first, everyone's like, I can't believe you're saying, like, literally, I was ridiculed for talking about zinc and vitamin D. Yeah. Now everybody's like, oh, you really should take zinc and vitamin D because because the conventional, it's crazy. But here's the thing that they don't know. It's like they look at things through a microscope. It's like they only see in part. They don't see the whole person because their model is so flawed. The medical model today is really created to only change your symptom, but then you're going to have a side effect because of whatever you use. Here's the truth. One of the things I cover in my book, just in the first chapter, I don't spend a lot of time on this, but there isn't a single medication without a side effect.
Yes.
Every medication from NSAIDs to birth control pills, to thyroid medications, to blood pressure medication, to diabetes. Diabetes medications, for instance, totally sucks your body dry of coenzyme Q10. So if you're on a diabetes drug, you're actually increasing your risk of dying of a heart attack or stroke dramatically, along with liver issues and some other major medical conditions. And so versus, hey, you change your diet, you get rid of all the excess sugar and carbs, you eat more real food and get some of those good healthy omegas, and you take a few of the right supplements like turmeric, you're going to get even better results, and you're not going to have the side effects, and you're going to live longer. So anyways, the problem is our system today, even statistically, we rank like in the 40s in overall our medical system. We're number one in emergency care, but in quality care and getting somebody healthy, we rank like 48 or something. I mean, it is so terrible that it's just, but yet today, somehow in America, like people listen to what these American, conventional doctors say when when what they're doing isn't working.
And unfortunately, I think a lot of it is you're told something often enough, you just believe it. We've been told our whole lives, fat is going to make you fat, and we know that's not the case. The literature shows that's not the case. That you need to eat, 6 small meals a day. No, you don't. That you don't go into starvation mode because you're not eating. A lot of what we're told, it's repeated so many times, we just believe it. And you mentioned type 2 diabetes and how medications aren't helpful. And I actually made a note in the book as I was reading it where you said that some medications may not even help. Well, insulation for type 2, or insulin rather, insulation.
Yep. Insulin. Yep.
It doesn't help, again, the root cause of why can't my body get rid of this. And that's because, you're feeding it more and more sugar. And again, the attitude is, and even the American Diabetes Association suggests that, just shoot up. Go ahead and eat your snacks, your sugars, your sweets. We don't want you to restrict anything. Just shoot some more insulin. And we wonder why, kids today are diabetic, and it's not an old person's disease anymore. It's young kids getting it. And we have an obesity epidemic to go along with that.
Yeah, and diabetes is a prime example. Talk about an easy one to remedy. You simply get rid of the sugar and some of the refined carbs, replace those with healthy fats and protein. Yep. And you take, herbs like cinnamon and fenugreek and take a mineral like chromium, and boom, all of a sudden 30 days, it's reversed. And people might scoff and be like, oh, that's great. That's so fast. I've seen it hundreds of times. Yeah. Hundreds of times. This is how this works. But again, until people actually follow through and do it themselves, if they're suffering, then it's hard to make certain people believers.
Yep. And you can reverse it. Of course, people, if you go back to eating the way that you were, then I become diabetic again. It's no different than if I stop drinking, I'm not an alcoholic anymore.
That's right.
Because I'm not drinking anymore. And also, I thought it was interesting how you mentioned a lot of these medications not only cause other problems, but again, that nutrient depletion. They're actually sucking so many nutrients out of the system. And you step back and look at, what are the recommended, and I use that in air quotes, intake for vitamins and minerals. And our bodies are fighting for it because what we're ingesting, not just medication-wise, but improper nutrition-wise, those recommendations are off, because if we were eating properly, we wouldn't need as much because our body could absorb it properly.
Exactly. I mean, the truth is, and here's the other thing I find sad. They call Hippocrates the father of Western medicine, or even modern medicine. Mm-hmm. Hippocrates, if he were here today, everybody would say, oh, he's practicing Eastern medicine. Like, I've read through his documents, everything he's recommended. He recommended herbs. He recommended sunbathing. He recommended fasting. He recommended vinegar. Like, all of these things that are holistic today. Here's the other thing. Doctors take something called the Hippocratic Oath. I took it myself. Yep. It's first, do no harm. When a doctor is prescribing a medication in 90% of circumstances, they're actually doing harm via the side effect, versus if they would recommend diet first and something natural, no harm is done, only healing is done. And so that's one of the things too. And that's why, again, for me, one of the things I do cover in the book so in depth is here's how to heal the root cause of disease.
Yeah.
I do it for over 70 conditions. So even if somebody wants to lose weight or reverse diabetes or reverse hypothyroidism or boost low testosterone, I go through, here are the exact foods not to eat, here are the exact foods to eat, here are the exact supplements. And so really it makes it simple and easy for people. But that's the thing, like thyroid problems, for example. A thyroid issue is rarely due to, oh, I was born with my thyroid being bad, it's just not working. Yeah. It's the case in less than 1%. 99% of the time, it's actually an adrenal issue where there's way too much stress hormones being released. Sometimes if you have Hashimoto's, it's more of a gut issue. So if you can start healing the gut, healing the adrenals, using food as medicine, and doing some stress techniques, bam, hypothyroidism improves and reverses. And actually in Chinese medicine, they call it a qi and yang deficiency, which basically means your adrenal battery is low and your hormones are off. And there are easy ways to fix that. But the truth is, most people don't know that there's a natural way to heal that. And so anyways, getting the root cause is really the thing that people need to focus on doing.
They do. And you made a point there that a lot of medications where they prescribe the medications to counteract the medications that they prescribed, which drives me nuts. I know I discuss on here a lot of times, you need to find your why. Why are you doing what you're doing? Yeah. And for me to stay, healthy and live low carb for the rest of my life, one of them is I don't want that big box with AM and PM full of pills every single day when I'm 70, 80, and 90 years old. Because the vast majority of those pills are there because they're counteracting the other pills. And as you mentioned in the book, it was William Osler mentioned that when you start taking medicine, you got to recover from it twice. Once from the disease and once from the medication itself. And we don't stop and think about that, how a lot of these medicines destroy the gut and the microbiome in there and cause other problems within the system.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the thing, again, when you look at antibiotics, for instance, antibiotics not only kill the good bacteria or the bad bacteria, they kill the good bacteria in your gut. They say 70% of our immune system lives in our gut. So if you've taken an antibiotic drug, even for a cold or flu, you've killed a lot of the good bacteria, and you've also increased your risk of serious health conditions, according to medical research, like cancer and autoimmune disease, by damaging your gut and your immune system. Now, good news is there's things you can do to replenish it, but most people never do. Their doctors never say, hey, make sure to take a high-dose probiotic for months after to replenish. Most people don't.
Yep, and actually, one of my kids had a surgery or had an antibiotic, and we started intentionally giving him probiotics to help out because we knew that it caused damage to his stomach, and we needed to take care of that when he was an infant. So let's go ahead and get into, you already mentioned the qi and the yin and the yang, the traditional Chinese medicine. Just get a little background. What is the qi? And for those wondering, that's actually spelled QI. And the yin and yang and the balance that we should try to achieve is with what we eat and how we nourish our bodies.
Yeah, Corey, well, first let me say this. When I first heard those words myself, like qi and yin and yang, I thought, that sounds out there. Like, that's weird, okay? And as I started saying, okay, I want to study and research this more deeply, because let me say, I got turned on to this because my first year in practice, I was working so many hours that I started giving myself digestive issues. And I met a man who is an Israeli man, a man from Israel, and he was studied under a master acupuncturist and Oriental medical doctor in China. And he came here to the States, and I started talking with him, and he said, hey, you know what? He said, you've got this, some issues here because you're working so much, you need to back down. I did. My gut issues went away. But anyways, because of my own health problem, I started learning more about this Chinese medicine. And as I started reading, I started realizing it's just a different language. It's really a more simplistic way of putting things. Qi is essentially your body's adrenal hormones. Think cortisol, or even your body producing ATP, your body producing energy. I give this example. Qi is essentially like the phone, the battery on your phone. Like if somebody looks at their phone right now, like what percent battery do they have? Like mine right now is 81%, okay? If you're functioning at 81%, you're gonna be doing pretty good. If you're at 50% though, and you're not sleeping enough, and you're highly stressed, those two things specifically, and you're not nourished enough, what happens is your battery gets really low, and that battery feeds all of your body's organ systems. It feeds your stomach, it feeds your liver, it feeds your brain. So anyways, keeping qi high. So adaptogenic herbs throughout history were used to treat low qi or adrenal issues. And so that's where like ashwagandha, rhodiola, maca, these herbs were used to help ginseng. These herbs were used to help strengthen that area of the body, really the adrenals. And then the other thing, yin and yang, that's more, think about male and female hormones. So we're like, estrogen might be very yin, testosterone yang. Yang is also associated with a lot of heat or inflammation, where your body is doing something, working, where yin is more like digestive juices, relaxation. It's also in your body, you have your sympathetic nerve system and your parasympathetic. Parasympathetic is yin, sympathetic is yang. And so think like if somebody goes out and tries to run a 5K right now, or just, they can't eat a cheeseburger at the same time because these systems are balanced. The reason is like when you're running, all of your blood flow and energy goes to your brain for alertness and your extremities to run or fight. So that's, so you don't have enough energy in your stomach to digest versus, hey, you sleep, you wake up, you're relaxed, you're eating food, your body's creating saliva and enzymes to break down food, you're relaxed. Your body's going to digest very well then because you're in that yin state, which is more breaking things down, utilize. So anyways, like a condition like hypothyroidism, as I mentioned, it's a qi deficiency and a yang deficiency. And so you got to build up the adrenals, and yang, you got to sort of help strengthen the body with certain herbs like fenugreek is very good for that. And ashwagandha is sort of like the ideal herb for treating thyroid issues according to Ayurvedic medicine. But all that being said, that's sort of the idea behind a couple of those terms.
Okay. And just something that I noticed with some of those, it says right in there, avoiding ice cold drinks. I prefer a glass of ice with my water. Sure. So what's the how does that work into that with everything?
Well, it depends on the person and the season. And so if we're talking about somebody where, hey, it's summertime and it's hot out, drinking a cold drink is fine. But when your body gets too cold internally, it's hard for your body to digest food. Your body has to produce heat and certain acids and things like that to break down food. So this is typically the advice given to people with digestive issues or immune-related issues. But really digestive issues, you want to keep your body warm. So ginger, that's a warming herb, right? Yeah. That's part of the reason why it's so good for your digestion. It helps warm and reduce inflammation. And so ice cold food, ice water, even other foods, by the way, a lot of these create excess, some of them also create excess dampness. That's probably the biggest issue with digestion. Dampness is another, candida is a type of dampness. Snot, mucus, and phlegm, that's a type of dampness. If somebody has like Crohn's and ulcerative colitis, oftentimes there's mucus in the colon, okay? So those are all forms of dampness. Dampness or yeast or mucus, they keep your body from absorbing nutrients. They keep things from moving throughout the body quickly. Like SIBO, that's another condition where you have some of that issue where things aren't moving properly. But eliminating dampness is a key to healing the digestive system. So for instance, candida, when you see a white coating on your tongue, that's candida or that's dampness in Chinese medicine. There are herbs that help that, like pau d'arco, oregano, cinnamon, things that are bitter that help dry up dampness are very good for that sort of thing. Even like, think about if you have a cold or flu. A lot of times when you have a cold, you have mucus, snot, phlegm. Yeah. You ever have an herb straight, which they're typically covered up with other flavorings, but every one of those herbs that treat a cold or flu, they tend to be very bitter. Okay. Very bitter. So that's what actually bitter foods and bitter herbs dry up dampness. Okay.
And same with when you mentioned like ginger, oregano, and cinnamon, we use the essential oils often. Those are all also hot oils. That's right. If you take those straight up, you will know it.
Like, why do we call it a cold? Yes. Why is a cold called a cold? That comes from ancient Chinese medicine. Your body is cold internally. So all the ancient remedies are to warm your body up with cayenne and cinnamon and garlic and oregano, all those warming spices. Yep. So absolutely.
That's it's amazing the things you learn as you go. Along with that, I found it interesting how basically your head, tongue, and face tie into the rest of the body, your internal organs, and how in ancient Chinese medicine, They can, as you've already mentioned, look at your tongue and your face and say, oh, you probably have an issue here. Again, that's one of those things where I'd sit there and go, you're nuts. But I'm to the point now, it's like, yeah, that's probably not as crazy as it sounds.
Well, it's not crazy. I don't know why we've made it crazy today.
Yeah.
It's like if we didn't find it, I mean, what's crazy today is that we think we can look under a microscope and we know exactly the root of everything. When what happens when you look under a microscope only by itself, you miss out on the big picture. That's the problem today. Nobody sees the big picture. It's like, think about the way we've treated today, something like if there's a virus out there, how do we treat it? Let's do this. Let's not think about people losing their jobs. Let's not think about people who are struggling with now alcoholism, greater drug use, the depression, the suicide rates, all these things. Those are people that don't know and understand the big picture versus saying, hey, let's look at the big picture here. Let's make that's the problem with our medical system today. It's a problem with, again, government today, a lot of these things. So all that being said, when you look at Chinese medicine or looking at the face or reading the tongue, it is more definite in ways than a blood test and blood work. Blood work doesn't always tell you everything.
Right.
In fact, it tells you very little in regards to certain conditions. So that being said, like if I look at somebody's tongue, if they stick out their tongue, by the way, why do we stick out our tongue today? Today, it's only to look at your tongue if your tonsils are swollen. Throughout history, people have been sticking out their tongue. I guarantee Hippocrates had people do it because if you have ridges on the side of your tongue, that's a digestive issue. Okay, that's related to your digestive system is weak. If you have a white coating on your tongue, on the whole tongue, that's candida, that's dampness throughout your system. If it's only on the back of your tongue, that's adrenal fatigue. If your tongue is too pale, it's anemia. If it's a perfect color, that's obviously good. If it's too purple, you have an issue with not enough oxygen in your blood. So anyways, I can tell so much from looking at somebody's tongue, people's skin. If somebody gets dark circles under their eyes, that's completely kidney adrenal issues somebody is dealing with there. If you get acne at certain areas or redness in certain areas, it's related to the differing organ systems that are having issues. And so, reading your tongue, your face, feeling somebody's pulse, if somebody is really sharp in Asian medicine, there's a lot they can tell from that. And I want to point this out too. The place where they practice the most of what I'm talking about is Japan.
Okay.
Who has the longest life expectancy in the world today? Japan. So, you go over there, it's like, this is common knowledge. Here we're like, oh, that's crazy. Well, how's our health compared to theirs?
Yeah, no kidding. And it comes down to treating symptoms and not the whole body. I talked to a doctor a couple of weeks ago, and he's talking about how, carpal tunnel syndrome is the exact same issue that he deals with a diabetic neuropathy of the foot. And it's a restriction of the blood vessel as a result of what you're eating. But they treat him completely differently. And he's like, wait a minute, it's this. So he took literally that same procedure on the wrist, started doing it on feet, and he's no longer chopping limbs off. Wow. And at the same time, he's telling people don't eat sugar because that's the cause of the problem. But again, it's that medical specialization that we have today is I deal with the hand, I deal with the eye. I don't look at the body as a whole. I don't look at the person as a whole and take care of the whole system at one time.
Yeah, that's right. And that's the big thing here. If anybody's watching this and they're saying or listening and they're saying, you know what, I'm struggling with the issue. The good news is there's a natural way to heal it. You probably just haven't gone through the right program and done the right things. And again, that's one of the things I cover in my new book, Ancient Remedies, is I really get into here is exactly how to heal the root cause of disease, to the foods to eat, the supplements to take, the herbs, the essential oils, the lifestyle practices. And the thing is, when somebody actually has a plan, I think that's one of the things that was so important with my mom. When my mom had her cancer diagnosis, one thing I can tell you is she was kind of like a deer in the headlights. Like there is so much information. The doctors were telling her one thing. She's kind of like, what do I do? And so I wrote down for her, here's what to eat for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Here's the exact time of day to take these supplements. Here's some other things to do. And she just followed the plan and she healed. I think the problem is a lot of people don't have a plan for them because their doctors don't lay out for them a very specific plan. So they really don't. So they're still kind of guessing, well, I don't know if I can eat this, but maybe I can and whatever. Versus I found and again, as I lay in my book, here's exactly what to do for every single meal, every single supplement, every part of the day.
Yeah. And I think, unfortunately, doctors, they don't have a plan short of here's my prescription pad and here, go fill this and take it. They don't, again, how do I take care of the root cause? And the vast majority of the problems we deal with today, that root cause can be fixed by what we shove in our mouth.
Amen.
And I also really enjoyed reading about the 5 elements of traditional Chinese medicine. Again, initially I was like, this ought to be interesting. So I did all the questions, and sure enough, when I got through there, and it's a fire, earth, water, wood, and metal. I'm wood, water with a tad bit of earth, and the personality traits to go along with that. It was relatively interesting just to see how accurate that was, and then also how you can feed the particular elements that are more specific to yourself.
Yeah, I think when you look at the 5 elements of Chinese medicine, it's kind of like the first Enneagram or Myers-Briggs or DISC profile. It's a personality profile. But with it, they found that all the different people experience different emotions. And with the emotions you experience, that is the number one thing that will determine what health struggle you will have. Because, for instance, if somebody doesn't eat well, one person gets cancer, one person gets autoimmune disease, one person gets indigestion, another person gets hypothyroidism. What causes it? It's not genetic.
Right.
It's your emotions. Listen to this. If somebody has, like, I'll give you an example. This is absolute fact. If a child has a nightmare, they can wet the bed, right?
Yeah.
So a nightmare causes you to wet the bed. Because fear, the emotion of fear, causes dysfunction of your kidneys and your adrenals. If we call somebody a fight or flight state, what does that do? Fight or flight. We know that's adrenal.
Yep.
If somebody worries a lot, causes an upset stomach, they'll say my stomach is tied in knots, right? If somebody has anger, or somebody has a lot of liver issues, we call them an angry drunk. We know that liver issues by too much alcohol creates anger problems. I'll give you more examples, like anxiety.
Yeah.
Causes your blood pressure to raise. It affects your arteries restrict, your heart. So we know that anxiety, that emotion, affects your cardiovascular system.
Yeah.
And we also know that the issue of, here's another big one, grief, or if you have had something happen in the past and you haven't been able to let it go, like unforgiveness, that affects primarily your immune system. And so because you haven't been able to let things go, you're still holding on, and also things stop moving because you kind of get stuck. So all that being said, if you want to heal your body, you got to address that emotion. If you have a lot of fear, you need to really start building hope and faith and fostering those healthy emotions in order to overcome that. And that's one of the things I get in the book too of, hey, if you've got an issue like, for instance, the root cause of prostate cancer. The root cause of prostate cancer is lack of thrill and excitement in somebody's life. If somebody's life for many years has been ho-hum, kind of boring, doing the same thing every day, and somebody has just no vigor, no excitement, none of that in their life, that actually causes prostate cancer. Breast cancer, let me give you an example here. Breast cancer is one of 2 issues. If it's left-sided breast cancer, it's one emotional issue. If it's right, it's another. Left side is yang in Chinese medicine. This is fact, all fact. Left side is Chinese medicine is yang. That means you give and you give and you give and you give. So the breasts are known for 2 things. They're known as nourishing an infant, and they're also known for sexual desire. Those 2 things. The left side, that yang, is a mother nursing, or that's and a mom that's going to get breast cancer, like my mom had it on her left side, and she was the mom that said, I'm going to sign up. I'm going to do the PTA meetings. I'm going to bring my kids to soccer practice. I'm going to work full time. I'm going to make dinner. And she gave and she gave and she gave of herself till she had nothing left. That made her ill. That's why she got left-sided breast cancer, is you give too much till you have nothing left, and now your body can't heal itself. The right side is you're not in touch with your feminine side. And so, and again, this is all Chinese medicine. The right side is, like, I'll give you an example of somebody that's happened to. Somebody got right-sided breast cancer when this was there was a man, and he had a daughter, and his wife had died, and he always wanted a boy, so he actually named her Hope because she had hoped she was a boy and raised her like she was a boy. And because of it, like, she had never really touched into her femininity, and because she got right-sided breast cancer. And again, you know, some of this stuff might be like, oh, I don't know. This is ancient Chinese medicine. This has been around for almost 4,000 years of millions and millions of individual case studies. So the emotions you experience, absolutely, based on what type of emotion it is, will cause the disease in your organs. And I would actually tell you that the emotions you experience are just as important as the food you're eating. They're both 50-50 in healing. And of course, there's other lifestyle things, sleep and exercise and that sort of thing. But those are absolutely 1 and 2 if somebody wants to heal, what they got to pay attention to.
Yeah, it's amazing how our emotions, like you've mentioned in so many ways, affect our entire body, depending on the emotion and so forth. And I think sadly in medicine, we don't step back and think about that and say, well, again, here's a pill. We'll pick on a specific surgery here, bypass. We're going to do gastric bypass or a sleeve or a band. But in 99% of the time, these doctors don't sit down and go, well, let's take care of your emotional attachment to food, because you're about to not have that attachment. One gentleman that I know of that I've met, he had the surgery and 2 weeks later went out to eat. He bought the same thing he used to eat prior surgery. Before he got to the car, obviously it didn't stay down because he's got, a stomach the size of a fist. And he said, look, I put all the weight on because they never took care of the emotional problems I was having that got to me to where I was in the first place.
Well, he never took care of his own emotion. It's his responsibility. But yeah, absolutely.
So I think that needs to be discussed even more so. So there's a lot of things that are good for us. One of the things I did like, it's not just adding the particular things. So one of the examples you gave is combining different things together in order to fully absorb the nutrients. So, for example, you mentioned how turmeric, it's a great to take, but by itself doesn't do much good unless you're combining it with something else, such as the extract pepperine, which comes from obviously black pepper, and how it's that synergy of combining everything properly to take fully advantage of what we're taking.
Yeah, so for instance, with turmeric, if you want to just affect your colon in your small intestine, then taking turmeric by itself is fine. But if you're a person that wants to heal your heart, your brain, your joints, fight cancer at the cellular level, turmeric, you need to consume it with warming spices. What do warming spices do? Think about if you had a bunch of garlic and cayenne right now. You'd be sweating.
Yeah.
Right? So that's what happens is your capillaries, your blood vessels open up. It increases circulation. Yep. So now when you take turmeric with, whether it's black pepper or cayenne or ginger, it's now better. Your cells open up, your blood vessels open up. And so now it's both, it gets into your bloodstream better. And also it's now circulated better throughout the entire body. And there are other examples of that. Vitamin D, for instance, is much better absorbed when you consume it with fat, like a coconut oil or another form of fat is great. And there are other good examples of that. I think bitter foods and sour foods are great to eat when you're consuming fat. It's going to increase the absorption. You're going to better absorb fats because bitter foods activate your liver and your gallbladder to produce bile. So it's going to help in that way too. So yeah, I get in the book not only food combining, but herb combining and what herbs to take together for better benefits. And so anyways, I think it's, all those things are important to consider when people are trying to use, their food as their form of medicine.
Yeah. And food definitely is one of the best medicines out there. But along with that, I hesitate to call some of these things foods, but they call them that in the marketplace today. What should we be avoiding? Because obviously we've talked a lot about these are the things that are going to help you get healthier, to help you lose weight, get healthy, and feel amazing. But at the same token, a lot of the things that they claim are foods, I like to call them food-like substances, and they're actually causing more harm than good. Let's go through some of those.
Yeah, so I think the big, let's start with sugar, of course. Sugar is something you want to stay away from. And I also think it depends on to a degree, somebody's activity level and how their body is wired. What elements, which is what I am, tend to do better with carbohydrates. Whereas, a fire element will not do well with a lot of carbohydrates. In fact, a fire element, which I think is very likely what you are, is based on your feature. I can tell based on the way they look. But fire elements will tend to do very well with a keto diet or higher fat, higher protein. They do have a hard time with carbs, do well with red meat, with coffee, with beets, like those sort of foods they'll thrive on. But all that being said, you want to stay away from sugar. If you are going to do sugar, fruit, as a full fruit or a little bit of honey. But I really think stevia, a little bit of monk fruit. I do not like sugar alcohols in large amounts. If it's a small little bit here or there, but it's really hard on the gut and digestive system to do xylitol, lots of erythritol. So I say stay away from those sugar alcohols. But sugar in general is the first big thing you got to be aware of. Number two is those refined carbs. White bread and wheat products. Wheat products are not the same that you'd find in, Italy today, the einkorn wheat. Even then, wheat is the stickiest and creates the most dampness internally, which a lot of people have an issue with. So white and wheat products are the two things people should just stay away from. Now, I don't think all grains are bad. I think that some people can do fine with grains if they're properly prepared, if they're sprouted, and then if they're cooked for a long period of time or fermented in small amounts. But they shouldn't be the main staple in a diet to me. I think they're sort of a side. And some people do better with no grains at all. But if you do them, it should be a sprouted rice made into a congee or oats made into a porridge, something like that. But I do think the carbs in general, especially the grains, another big thing people need to get out, especially if they're refined. After that, those hydrogenated oils or those oils that are too high in omega-6s. Oils, if you think about it, all oils are processed to some degree. Even olive oil and coconut oil, they're taken and compressed from something. Now, I do think as an oil, my top two oils by far are coconut oil, number one, extra virgin olive oil, number two. But you've also got to be careful with some of these health food stores labeling things healthy oils. I'll give you an example. Canola oil is not a healthy oil. No. It's not healthy. It comes from the rapeseed, and generally speaking, it's genetically modified 90% of the time. Soybean oil, very inflammatory. Vegetable oils, cottonseed oil, corn oil, very high in omega-6 fats. You want to stay away from all those oils. But even sunflower and safflower oil, which are found in a lot of health food stores and their chips and things today, those are still really omega-6 rich. They're going to cause inflammation. And there's a lot of calories there. So I don't recommend that. If you're going to use an oil, coconut oil and extra virgin olive oil, those are the best oils. I think avocado oil is okay for some people. That's probably number three, and ghee and grass-fed butter are probably in there in that. But again, those top two, if you're going to use oils, and stay away from the rest. And then in general, you want to stay away from artificial sweeteners. The sucralose, the aspartame, conventional dairy is really hard on a lot of people, their digestive system. Now, I think if it's raw fermented dairy you're picking up at your local farmer's market, that's fine for some people. But conventional milk, so hard and toxic on the system. And conventional meat, not really healthy either. What I do recommend people eat is, number one, lots of vegetables, ideally cooked. Number two, lots of organic meat. And those are the top two. If you want to know how to heal and reverse almost any health problem, generally speaking. Now, some foods are better for other people than others, and I cover that in the new book, Ancient Remedies. But cooked vegetables and organic meat, those two things, if you're eating those almost every meal, you're going to heal in most cases. I mean, autoimmune disease, a number of conditions. That's what my mom did to heal her cancer. It was loads of vegetables, some wild organic meat, and then a little bit like berries here and there, and that's sort of it. I mean, that's what you eat. And so that's the ideal diet, okay? So you got your vegetables, you got your wild organic meat, you've got some low glycemic, very nutrient-dense fruit like blueberries, raspberries, goji berries, figs, that sort of thing. And then after that, you may have some healthy fats like avocados and coconut and, and olives, those sort of foods. And then maybe even some, maybe some nuts and seeds and grains here and there, but using those more sparingly. Just depends on how your body does with those, just making sure they're properly prepared. But those are really the foods people should be eating. But the truth is, I think a lot of times people think like, well, that doesn't sound like a lot. It's actually a lot. There are so many meals you can make with all the things I just shared. And so anyways, there's, and I feel like I eat like a king. I mean, I had, for breakfast, I had this big berry smoothie with vanilla collagen powder and blueberries and coconut milk. It was delicious. For lunch today, I had a big grass-fed burger with a bunch of steamed vegetables with some tahini. And then tonight, I think we're going to do a natural chicken parmesan where we'll do like a coconut crust on it and a gluten-free crust, and we'll fry it up in coconut oil, and then we'll do more vegetables like baked in coconut oil, and then I'll probably do some dark chocolate. And it's good. There's plenty of stuff people can eat like this that tastes even better than, a lot of the processed stuff.
And it's so true. I mean, one of the advantages my kids have is they haven't had, like me, the majority of my life destroying their bodies. So they can have a lot of the things you've discussed. So they actually had blueberry smoothies today because I got some frozen blueberries last night. And so that to them, for example, that just a side rant on children, if they don't eat the garbage, they have no clue, because to them, those blueberries are as sweet as can be. We actually made the mistake of buying pickles that weren't sugar-free, and my kids won't eat them. They're like, why is this so sweet? And they whipped it over. I went, oh, whoops, grabbed the wrong jar. It's amazing once that stuff gets out of your system or was never in your system, stuff tastes so much better. Like you said, we eat like kings. And unfortunately, people think they're restricting themselves when they're not. The freedom that we have and what we eat is ridiculous. And I also love what's called the processed oils, the 7 deadly oils. So true. With the inflammation that they offer. Let's also talk about some of those superfoods, those ancient superfoods that you listed in one chapter specifically. And some of them are becoming popular again. Obviously, you said the last 150 years we've forgotten them. But we started off with bone broth, and you go through organ meats. Of course, we've already discussed some healthy fats, herbs, and spices. But let's just go through some of those ancient foods that we should be incorporating that we may not have been doing all these years.
Yeah, I do think I want to hit on it again. Number one is bone broth. I mean, it's not just a micronutrient, it's a macronutrient. We need collagen. 1/3 of all the protein in our body is made up of collagen. So getting collagen in bone broth powder as a supplement, or drinking straight bone broth, or doing all of them, because I do all of them, we should be getting a serving of collagen every single day via bone broth or a supplement. So that's number one. Number two, I do think we need more herbs and spices in our diet. Again, turmeric and rosemary and ginger and garlic, and using whatever you need to support your house. If you have a heart issue, use garlic and rosemary. If you've got an issue with inflammation and joint pain, use lots of turmeric. If you want to support your brain, again, rosemary is another fantastic one. If you want to support your immune system. So, there's lots of good ones there. So I'll just say, I do think more herbs and spices is a great thing. After that, I do think organ meats, like liver, is one of the ultimate supplements. It's nature's B vitamin. So if you need to support your thyroid and your liver, those two organs specifically really need a lot of B vitamins. And so I do think doing like liver tablets or eating liver is great, like those organ meats. Mushrooms. Talk about a big one, shiitake mushroom, maitake. If you go to a specialty store or Whole Foods market, or even your regular grocery store today, you're going to see a lot of these mushrooms. In my book, Ancient Remedies, I actually have 80+ recipes for a lot of things, everything from, pancakes using whole grain flours to, muffins to all kinds of stuff, cheesecake, carrot cake, chocolate chip cookies, got all that stuff. But I also have one with mushrooms it's called a miso mushroom immunity bowl. And it's the ultimate meal to boost your immune system. And so mushrooms like maitake and shiitake, they are great immune boosters used throughout history. So those are great. One other thing I want to mention that's so amazing is that if you're struggling with a specific condition, you need to eat foods that look like the body part. One of the things I cover in the book, it's a saying in ancient Asian medicine that like supports like. So eating a walnut, for instance, a walnut, if you crack it open, it has two halves that both look like the left and right hemisphere of your brain. It looks like a brain, a walnut. Walnuts in medical studies have been shown to help heal and prevent Alzheimer's, dementia, improve memory focus, because it's high in omega-3s, choline, and vitamin E. Celery looks like your bones. Celery is one of the most alkalizing of all vegetables, also has vitamin K and calcium in it, and actually helps strengthen your bones. Beets look like your red blood cells, and they actually boost nitric oxide, boosting heart health. And there's all kinds of others we could talk about. I mean, avocados look like a uterus. Figs look like testes. Onions look like your cells. And so anyways, I go through all of that a lot more in the book on exactly what foods to heal which conditions. Which is pretty amazing.
Yeah, that was really neat. I as I flipped through and went through that chart, it's like, wow, that's really cool how, God created all this stuff and ways to help us understand how to use it and better heal our bodies. Something also with the herbs and spices. People I always recommend, got to pay attention to the ingredients first and foremost, because if you're buying especially blends, they're full of sugar, maltodextrin, and all sorts of garbage that's in them. There's a reason I started my own company called Select Savory Seasonings. It's to offer the cleanest, healthiest seasonings and spices on the market. And also freshness has a very big thing to consider too. Most stuff in your big market stores, I went through, and a lot of that stuff has an expiration date of 4 and 5 years from the date it's on the shelf. Spices have about a 2-year shelf life, and they start losing their efficacy. So they're not as good as they were. And if you're buying cheap stuff, it's cheap for a reason. So you definitely want to be buying high quality herbs and spices to not only flavor your foods, but also to heal your body. And I had cinnamon written on one of my notes, because you had mentioned turmeric, cilantro, and cinnamon are more nutrient dense than broccoli, kale, and blueberries. My oldest, for some reason today, put cinnamon in the palm of his hand and was licking it and said it was the greatest thing he's ever had. So just a side note there. In the last few minutes we got here, CBD and cannabis is something that's obviously really big today. Can you dive into that a little bit? And along with, how do you know you're getting a high quality CBD oil?
Yeah, when buying CBD, the big thing, I'd look for organic today. I really think the organic distributors and farmers are doing the best job. And so that's one big thing, and just a company you can trust. You know, the other thing I'll say, so I want to say this, like, I'm a big fan for some people to do CBD, but remember, these are all forms of medicine when you get into some of these herbs, so they're not for everybody. But I think if somebody needs to sleep better, if somebody's in a fight or flight state and needs to sort of calm their body and stress hormones, somebody wants to improve their gut health, reduce inflammation, that's what CBD is good for. So there are a lot of things where I think CBD is fantastic. Cannabis, on the other hand, if it's high in THC, I recommend that to very, very few people. I would, and here's why. If somebody has chronic pain, it can help with nerve pain, which is one of the rare things that are natural. So if somebody's looking to get off an opioid drug, or something which is way more harmful, opioids and a lot of these pain-killing drugs are so damaging to the liver and your cardiovascular system, you just want to stay away from them. You're much better off doing something like a medicinal grade cannabis prescribed to you by a physician. But cannabis in China, by the way, the first reference to it that we have today is in a Chinese medicine textbook. And so it was used as medicine along with turmeric and ginger and all these things for a long time. It was just rarely used, or it was used in very small doses to supplement something for oftentimes, again, treating pain, treating nausea, those seizures, those sort of conditions, it can be effective for. But recreational use, I just want to say this, it will deplete your adrenals. It actually pulls something in your body called Jing, which is why if somebody does a lot of cannabis over time with THC, they'll start to lose motivation. You'll kind of say, oh, this person's not motivated anymore, because you've zapped a lot of your Jing and your DNA. It actually really affects your testosterone. It's probably one of the number one herbs for killing and totally destroying your testosterone, so causing you to age faster. So I just want people to be aware of that. Cannabis absolutely has side effects. Now, listen, it should be used in the materia medica, a medical, in a medical doctor's prescription base for certain things. But I do think, again, I just wanted to offer that level of caution, but I do think CBD specifically has tremendous benefits for a lot of people, really very little to no side effects, and is very safe and effective.
And that's something I think that gives you that pothead person who just sits on the couch eating food all day. And it's interesting. It's that constant use to get you there.
That's the THC side effect, not the CBD. That's THC.
Correct. That's the THC of smoking cannabis. But yeah, that CBD it's amazing, as you mentioned in your book, how the government cornered the market by making it illegal and finding ways to now profit on that is, well, let's just say irritating, to be polite. And then, of course, we did go through essential oils a little bit. I loved your 12 you can't live without, lavender, frankincense, oregano, which anytime I have an inkling of something coming down, I start taking oregano oil myself. Tea tree or melaleuca, peppermint, lemon, rosemary, clary, sage, basil, clove, eucalyptus, and cedarwood. We've got all of them in the house. I'm one that on occasion deals with an allergies or my nose starts running and my eye twitches. That's amazing. Peppermint, lemon, and some lavender, and you don't have to ingest it. You can just breathe it, which is amazing. That's something that blew my mind when I learned how this stuff works. So just a quick overview of essential oils and how do we use them. I know it varies a bit depending on what you're doing, but just some of the basics on essential oils too.
Well, essential oils are a powerful form of plant-based medicine, and I do think, in most cases, diffusing them, using them topically is the way to go. On occasion, a drop or two internally, which is a 60 milligram dose, which is what is essentially talked about in the medical literature. I think that's fine for certain oils, definitely not all, only certain ones like, lemon or peppermint, that sort of thing. But yeah, in the book, I really cover them in depth, what's good for what, how to use those. Rosemary, incredible for the brain and for thickening hair. You've got ginger and turmeric for inflammation, holy basil, an amazing adaptogenic oil to lower stress hormones. Clary sage, it's really good for estrogen and progesterone, balancing hormones in women and reducing menstrual cramps. Fenugreek for male testosterone. Peppermint and ginger for digestion. And so there's a lot of benefits, a lot of these oils topically for anti-aging skin. Geranium and rose are great. And of course, lavender, probably the most prescribed, is great for relaxing, improving sleep.
And we like you said, just diffusing them into the air is many times all that you really need. So I always like to finish off with two questions. First of all, what's one simple tip that you would offer somebody who is trying to get to heal their bodies?
Yeah, so I would say this: just change breakfast. If you just change your breakfast, you're changing 1/3 of your diet. I mean, that's 33+%. I mean, that's a big change. So start off with that superfood smoothie I shared with you. 3 ingredients: coconut milk, vanilla, like a multi-collagen protein or a vanilla bone broth protein, something with collagen in it, and then a cup of berries or something like that, or raspberries or cherries or some sort of fruit. But do that for breakfast. Or if you want to go keto, replace the fruit with almond butter or an avocado or something like that. And you can do chocolate as well. But again, do that smoothie for breakfast. And I'll tell you, that will go so far in helping you heal.
I love that. Changing just your breakfast. Never crossed my mind that is 33% of your day, of your food intake. Your favorite simple low carb meal, since this is the Simple Low Carb Lifestyle podcast.
Oh man, one my wife and I do a lot is we cook up spaghetti squash and then we make some grass-fed meatballs. So we'll take grass-fed beef, we'll take eggs, we will take a little bit of garlic powder, some Italian seasoning, sea salt, and we'll make these. And then sometimes, as a flour, we might do like almond crackers or something like that, and just do a little bit of that in there. But we do that, and then we top it off with a little bit of olive oil and basil. And man, that great, spaghetti squash with grass-fed meatballs, it's a great low-carb meal.
That is an amazing meal, especially for those people that go, but I have to have my pasta. No, you don't. You've just been given one of the easiest ways to have your Italian dish without having all the wheat and the grains that aren't good for you.
That's right.
So your book is releasing in February, the first week of February. It's available on Amazon, at Barnes & Noble, and anywhere books are sold. And where else can people find you if they want to find out more about you and go from there?
Yeah, you can find me on Instagram and Facebook at Dr. Josh Axe. Also, I have a website, draxe.com, where I've written thousands of articles on how to heal naturally. And if you've listened to this podcast and you're saying, hey, I want to learn more, you can just go on to your search engine as well and just search Dr. Axe hypothyroidism. I've written an article on how to reverse thyroid issues. You can look Dr. Axe diabetes or Dr. Axe collagen, those sort of search terms, just add my name in and you'll see I've written some really in-depth things there. And then again, I encourage you to check out the new book. It's the best book I've ever read. I'm really proud of it. And it's also a reference guide you can go back to over and over and over again and just go online and read the reviews. In fact, this is one of the few books that Dr. Oz wrote an endorsement for. So, and he loved it. So you can just go on Amazon and search Dr. Axe Ancient Remedies and learn more about the book.
And it was a great book. I thoroughly enjoyed reading it. Like, you never thought of it, but like you said, it's a great reference. If you come down with something, there's over 70 remedies that are in there that you can go through and go, oh, here is the solution to the problem that I'm dealing with. I highly recommend the book. I thoroughly enjoyed reading it, and I know that you will too. So thank you for your time. I appreciate you coming on the show, and look forward to talking to you again soon.
Awesome. Thanks, Corey.
Thanks, Dr. Axe.